Hi friends, welcome back. Today we are celebrating a new MerMay release from Sweet November Stamps, and I'm going to be using the Guppies. Look how adorable they are, as well as one of the new amazing shakers that have these sweet little characters all like shrunken down, and they're like little plastic shaker pieces. We're going to be using them to make a shaker card, and we're actually celebrating MerMay with the biggest clear stamp release that Sweet November Stamps has ever done. And it's actually 11 new sets. So you have a chance to win all 11 stamp sets, all of them. All you have to do to play along is to visit each of the YouTube accounts listed down below. There's not a lot, it's just a few stops on this hop, which I think is extra special. Subscribe to each channel, like each video in the hop, and then leave a comment under each video. So it is super fun. It's so cool. I'm so excited to be doing this with all of the other ladies. You will have 4 days to hop along with us. So this is going to go from today, Saturday, May 20th, until Tuesday, May 23rd. And then a randomly selected winner will be announced on Wednesday, May 24th around 5 p.m. Pacific time. On the Sweet November Stamps channel and Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. So make sure that you hop your way along, and let me go ahead and jump on into the details of what we are doing with this card. So that we can get caught up. So I started out by trimming down a piece of my Copic Express It paper to be a little smaller than my regular standard panel, and I cut a piece of heavyweight white cardstock to be the same size. So that way we get that little bit of border. Originally I thought I was going to be using that blue kind of watercolor paper from My Favorite Things, but I ended up switching it to another color later just because the blue on blue was too much. So I am stamping my images now onto my Copic paper. This is the panel that's going to go on top of our shaker panel. I really love incorporating a scene kind of into my shaker. So this is going to be the front. I just masked off the little Guppy mermaid's tail so that I knew that everything would line up nicely. And then to make it easier on myself so that I wouldn't have to worry about fussy cutting, I am taking a Copic multi-liner and drawing a secondary background horizon line. This is my sneaky way to just, like I said, make that cutting process so much easier. Now I can just cut straight across the ground, and I really only have to actually fussy cut my mermaid. So before I'm going to get to that, we are going to start coloring in our scene. I am using my Copic sketch markers to do this. I'm starting out by shading in my mermaid, and I went with kind of my standard Caucasian skin tone, which is the E04, E13, E11, and E00. I'll also go in and give her a little bit of probably R20, I believe, to her cheeks. That's also my kind of standard go-to blush. And then while we're coloring this in, we're going to shade in the mermaid and the ground, but we're not going to worry about the background because all of that is going to be trimmed away, and we're going to use that second heavyweight white cardstock that you see up in the left corner. We're going to use that to create our background scene that's going to go inside our actual shaker pouch. So this style of shaker is, I think some people call it like an infinity or a flat shaker, where it kind of looks like it just goes right off the edge. I love this kind of shaker because it doesn't add a lot of bulk to your card. And these kind of shaker pieces that Sweet November Stamps is coming out with, these flat plastic characters, are perfect for this kind of shaker because they are flat, they move around so easily. It's a dream combination, I can promise you that. So I decided to shade in my mermaid's tail and her little top, both in this kind of like hot pink. And this is what is going to end up convincing me to change my background paper here at the end. That's why we're going to bring in the pink, just to break up all this blue that we're going to be creating with our background scene. So to balance out her hot pink outfit, I decided to make her a brunette. So I'm going in and just kind of emphasizing those artist drawn lines. following them to kind of get that hair texture, and then going in with my lightest shade, that E43, all over everything just to fill in all of those spaces. And I love how I have a balance here of light and dark in her hair. That does not always happen for me. Sometimes I can be a little heavy-handed because I start with my dark colors. So this one turned out really good as far as I'm concerned. Now I'm going in to shade my sand. I did add just a piece of printer paper, scrap paper underneath, so that as I'm coloring off the edge, I'm not getting ink all over my desk. So I like to shade kind of the artist drawn lines anywhere where there would be a shadow behind each of those hills. And then I like to kind of darken out my edges, kind of create that vignette sort of feeling. So I'm using that darkest marker that I think it was 30, either E39 or E37. And then I'm going in with my E35 now to just start blending that out, pulling that color from the outer edges towards the center. Then we're going to jump up to the 33 and leave just the smallest little bit of highlight for the 31 to fill in. I really have been loving the E30 combination for my sand lately because it is MerMay, and so I've been doing a lot of different mermaid and underwater cards. It makes me so happy. In my humble opinion, nobody does MerMay or a mermaid set like Sweet November Stamps. Amy absolutely nails it every time. So I did go in with my darkest marker and my E33 to stipple in some little sand texture. And because I knew I was going to be using some blue, green, teal kind of colors for my background, I decided to stick with some BG markers for my seaweed, just so that the tones would kind of go together. And I did this shell, and I don't think that's the shell to the left, and then whatever that round shell, I know they have a name. It's not a sand dollar, it's something else. I shaded those both in with some warm gray markers to kind of just leave them on that creamy or white side. And then I shaded in my little starfish to be teal and added some pinks to my coral, again, just to pull in that color one more place with to kind of coordinate with my mermaid, her outfit, well, her tail in her outfit. So to stamp out my sentiment, I am using a dark brown ink and stamping it right over the sand. And now I'm going to go in and fussy cut the top line of that horizon as well as my mermaid. This is probably my least favorite thing to do of anything in card making. I do not enjoy fussy cutting, but for the end result that I get with a card like this, I do think that it is worth it. So if you have been hesitant to try it out, the thing I can tell you is I found the most luck making sure that I'm using really sharp scissors and that I hold my scissors as still as I can. And I use my left hand to rotate my stamped image and my paper. And that seems to get me a pretty clean cut and really helps my hand and wrist to not hurt. So if you haven't tried that or you've been struggling, definitely keep those things in mind. Now I'm going in with a water-based black marker and I'm just edging all of the white edges that we fussy cut. That will help them to blend in with the stamped ink that we applied for our image and just help the edges look very clean and tidy when we adhere everything down together. I do this no matter what I'm creating with my fussy cut images. Anytime that I'm not die cutting and I don't have that nice white border, I always add in some black marker. So now I'm going in with this wavy stencil from My Favorite Things and some of my Distress Oxide Salvage Patina ink. I thought I was going to pull in a second color, but I ended up doing the whole thing just with this one shade. I'm just kind of creating this wavy textured background. You could definitely get the same kind of effect if you just cut out, cut the edge on a piece of cardstock. Or even like masking tape or post-it tape. You could make your own wavy pattern and just do the same kind of thing the whole way down. You don't have to have the stencil, but if you do have a stencil, it makes it very easy. So you can see in that moment, I decided that my wavy background and that watercolor were just too close. So I'm grabbing the pink watercolor from the same set, and I'm using the packaging from, I believe, this die set or this stamp set. It might be one of the other ones, honestly, but it's from the new release. I like to reuse my packaging when I'm creating my flat shaker pouches. It folds really easily, it's really easy to use, and it makes me feel a little bit better about the amount of packaging I go through. So I am trimming this down to just be about a 1/2 inch wider than my panel in each direction. We're going to flip our panel over and add some 1/4 inch, I believe, double-sided tape all the way around. Not being super crazy careful with this. We just want to make sure we get it, pretty close to the edge because I didn't leave myself a ton of border on my packaging. Then I will remove the backer paper. There you go, backing paper. And we're going to fold over 3 of the sides of our little shaker pouch to start. Because all of the elements I'm putting inside are pretty flat, I am going to pull this pretty tight. If you are working with like pearls, that like flat backed pearls or something that have more depth to them, you are going to want to make sure that you leave a little extra wiggle room on your plastic. So I'm going to shake some of these directly in to my pouch, and then some of these I'm going to go through and kind of pick and make sure that I have a good mix of sequins and characters. I did opt to skip the bigger shell sequins, but I promise that I will figure out a card panel to feature them very soon because they're so fun and they're so different than anything I've ever worked with before. So I wanted to make sure that there would be enough shaker bits in there that when I had it all closed up and I added my mermaid, that when you gave it a shake, all of those things would pop up from under the sand. So I sealed up that last side, and now I'm adding tape runner to the back of my panel. We're going to pop that onto our card base with the pink background, add some adhesive to the back of our little scene, and that is going to get popped up right over the edge of our shaker panel. And so I'll show you when this is kind of sitting flat or like standing up, all of the shaker bits are hidden. And then as soon as you give it a little shake, all those little critters come right to the top. I absolutely love how this turned out. I hope you're feeling inspired. Thank you so much for coming to hang out. Make sure that you hit the other stops along this hop before Tuesday, May 23rd, so that you have a chance to win all 11 stamp sets that are part of this new Sweet November Stamps release. I hope that you have the most amazing weekend. And as always, happy crafting.